Hi everyone, this is Jessie Shields. I'll be your moderator for today. We will give everybody maybe just a couple more minutes to pop into the room, and then I will go ahead and kick things off to get started. Thank you. All right, thank you for being patient. I think we'll go ahead and get started. Looks like we've got a full house. My name is Jessie Shields, and I am the Digital Manager with TS Banking Group. Just a kind of a few housekeeping items for today. Everyone will be muted during this presentation so that we can get through all of the standards and resources. So if you do have questions along the way, either write them down. There'll be a Q&A session at the end that we can go through them, or you can ask the questions in the attendee chat box in the upper left side of your screen. You'll see it just says chat. You can click there and type it in, and I can filter those out and we can answer them as we go along today. Today's presentation will be recorded, so it'll be sent out in a few days along with the PowerPoint. That way any links and resources that we talk about you'll have at your disposal after we get through this presentation. Today's presenter will be Kyle Osborne with the TS Institute, and I will go ahead and kick it over to him.
Thanks, Jessie. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Well, happy Tuesday afternoon. Hope everybody had a good school day and enjoying the weather in Iowa, right? I'm going to move pretty quickly today. We're going to call this part one of 9th through 12th grade because there are 12 standards. We're going to cover 5 of them today, and then we're going to shift gears in about 3 to 4 weeks or so. We're going to do part 2, and that's going to include some debt. So this is part 1. We'll look at the standards that we're going to cover. So one of the things that I like to do in these webinars is to show you the different anchor standards, the different standards related to the previous grade. So you'll notice that 8th grade, they covered those last 4 standards, and you'll notice that the new 9th through 12th grade standards are quite a bit more. And so the students, there's going to be quite a bit of a learning curve just for your awareness and just for your preparation and their knowledge. So that's a big picture there, 8th grade to 9th through 12th. Showing you what we're going to cover today, part 1. So we're just going to cover the first 5 standards of the 12 today. And then moving right along, part 2, April 16th, we will cover the remaining 7 standards. So just for your understanding and expectations there. So one thing that I did want to include on there is I've had some teachers ask me, where's the best place to find the standards. Hopefully you know where they are. My favorite place is the social studies standards. You can go to the 21st century and then you can drill down under 21st century and find those standards that are there. My favorite place is the social studies standards at the iowacorps.gov. That actually lists out all the standards in color code. Those are just easier for me to understand and hopefully easier for you. A couple things I wanted to point out for you as a high school teacher. There is a Discover Pathways grant that opens at different times throughout the year. That's hyperlinked, so that's just a helpful resource for you. A couple other things related to grants and training is Next Gen Personal Finance FinLit Camp. If you're in the southwest Iowa region or if you're in the western part of Iowa, there's the Omaha one, April 11th. It's a day workshop. And then you also have the one on April 12th in Des Moines. So I want to get you aware of those if you weren't. And we're going to jump right into our content for today. A couple best practices that I like to share, I gleaned from a fellow educator at the Jumpstart conference last summer. He talked about doing your best lesson first. So as you get those students, those kiddos into your class, doing your most memorable lesson first, getting them engaged, having them excited about it, and then getting them up and moving. So I want to really recalibrate. If you're in the habit of, obviously there's everybody has a preference, but if you're in the habit of giving syllabus or like what everybody's going to be going through for the year, like everybody else, it's going to be kind of mundane. But if you're the teacher that provides an amazing interactive lesson right away, first class, they're going to remember it and they're going to be engaged. So just throwing that out there for best practice. And we're going to jump right in. So we have 5 slides. They're going to be pretty full. I think we're going to be able to get through everything. We'll be a little bit tight on time. But so the first slide, some of these curriculums, some are just best practice ideas. So I'm going to hit the first standard of the 5. So developing long-term and short-term financial goals. I think most educators go to, the SMART goals. They go to putting down 4 or 5 different ideas of short-term goals or purchasing ideas for short-term and long-term. So I want to maybe expand that a little bit more and get a little bit into the philosophy of planning with this slide. So the first couple points, the take charge today, these are going to be the take charge, the high school financial planning, and the next gen are going to be curriculum oriented, and then the rest of them are going to be a little bit more on the philosophical side, helping students actually connect not only emotionally but just physically with what does it look like to plan ahead. So looking at the take charge today, in most of these curriculums they look at SMART, the acronym SMART. I think that's helpful. Sometimes it can get a little mundane. So one of the things I do like about the lesson that Take Charge has done is that they actually have a DICE lesson or a DICE activity with this. So if you haven't checked out the lesson related to long-term, short-term goals, there is the students are given a worksheet. They actually roll a dice and I think there's 6 different options on each situation in life. So the first one might be graduating high school, dropping out, graduating with honors, those types of things, getting married, having 4 kids. So there's different life scenarios that you roll a dice for, and it kind of paints a picture. And then the students have to wrestle through what is the short-term and long-term goals of my current scenario. So that's kind of a fun activity. There's also an activity where the students write a letter to their future self. I did that when I was in high school, and I pulled it out. Oh man, it was like 6 years later, and it was super hilarious just to read that, but also pretty spot on in a lot of different areas. So I thought that was a really fun activity for me when I was in high school, and it was definitely memorable. Moving right along, the high school financial planning program. So that is a part of the National Endowment for Financial Education, the NEFI curriculum. They have a lot of great ways of looking at goals. In that specific one, you have to go into the money management unit and then click on goals. The one thing I do like about the high school financial planning one is they have lesson, PowerPoint, and notes. Similar to the Take Charge, they focus on the SMART goals. And so it's kind of like your standard lesson. The one thing that's unique about the high school financial planning is you can actually order booklets. So the students are actually working through a booklet. So if you haven't seen that, it might be worth your while to check out. I'm going to go to the middle left picture, the pursuit of happiness, going a little bit philosophical on you here. The pursuit of happiness. So Will Smith stars in a true life story of a gentleman named Chris Gardner. And what happens is he's a medical device salesman. He's traveling around trying to make ends meet. His wife gets upset because he's not making money. She leaves him, and he ends up with custody of his young son. And he goes through a pretty rough spell of just trying to keep a job and trying to move the needle forward from a career perspective. And I thought this would be a great resource for you, whether it's show the trailer and have the students engage in conversation of what are some of the challenges that you see people going through, whether it's career orientation from like a short-term, long-term goal. What are some of the challenges that you see in your family, and having them write down. And then I think it makes it really practical, and it helps them connect the dots between this isn't just some cognitive thing that we're like doing, but this is actually real life, helping them connect real life to some of those goals. In the middle, the next gen personal finance. This is my favorite part of this lesson is at the very bottom. So this is again goal oriented. At the very bottom of this lesson, there's a car, a home, and retirement in those categories, and then it says, "What's my plan?" And students get to read about different people's life circumstances, and they also have to choose what they would do in those circumstances. So it could be husband and wife struggling to pay the bills and just found out they're pregnant. Or it could be a single woman who is trying to get into the engineering field but is struggling to find the right fit but doesn't want to move. And so like the pros and cons of, man, how do we do that? What are some of the short-term goals with that? What are some of the long-term goals with that? The picture on the middle right, this gentleman's named Bill Ekstrom, and his story, I don't want to give it all away, but his story is that he was climbing the corporate ladder and he was fired. And so he puts out this concept of the growth rings. And so he says most of us start in a place of order and we want comfort. But if we stay there too long, we stagnate and we kind of die, or we can move ourselves into complexity, or it gets pushed on us, similar to him losing his job. And so this is a TED Talk, and it really puts life in perspective of just what happens when things don't go our way, and how can we kind of consider what some of our goals would be, or some of our strategy would be in overcoming some of those. So that's a little bit more on the philosophical. Last one, Mr. Isaac Newton. And that I thought this would be a great way to either start the dialogue when it comes to short-term, long-term, and I'll connect the dots here in a minute. So his phrase is, an object in motion tends to remain in motion along a straight line unless acted upon by an outside force. You might be saying, Kyle, what does physics have to do with financial literacy? Well, what happens is most of us are moving in a direction, whether it's we are planning that direction, we have goals, or we're just kind of moving there, meandering, right? And so helping the students connect the dots between, we're all moving in a direction. It could be positive, it could be negative, and it could be destructive, it could be helpful, informative. And so actually helping this, maybe throwing that quote out and having the students, how does that connect to short-term and long-term? Getting them to think a little bit more deeper than just writing down 3 long-term goals and 3 short-term goals, and those types of things. So the picture in the middle with the 2 people talking, I was required to do this when I was in high school. I also was able to do this a little bit in college. I actually interviewed different people and how they got to where they were. And so what happens is not a lot of people, I'll just be honest, maybe you're the anomaly, but a lot of people don't really have short-term and long-term goals written down. They have them in their head, or they kind of have some thoughts. What I found is when I was interviewing people, successful people, people that maybe struggled all across the board, professors, teachers, principals, what I found is that they could write down goals or kind of milestones that got them to where they were, which basically is working backwards. And so that might be fun for your students to actually go interview somebody and work backwards in some of those maybe nebulous goals that that person didn't know that they had, but as they write them down, you're like, yeah, I actually did have a goal to go to college, or yeah, I did actually have a goal to work at a school or whatever. And so kind of working back that way. One quick comment with that is, as students write down these goals, a goal without a plan of implementation is just a dream. And so helping the students connect that something that's written down and something they're actually aspiring to, until they actually have a plan of executing that. That's why we have the SMART goal process. It's just a dream. The final picture on the bottom right is the sticky note. The sticky note was a helpful process, again, for me, where I wrote down all the different memories and all the different points in my life that shaped me to who I was, so that you could have your students do elementary to middle school, and then write down some circumstances they want happening in high school and some circumstances they want in the future. And then as they write down, I want to score that big job, or I want to work for the Omaha Zoo, or I want to whatever, then they can work backwards from that. So just a creative way to kind of think out of the box and get them connected to not just writing things on paper, but actually connecting them to making that plan. So slide 2, we're going to go real quickly. So take charge today, the curriculum there. This particular lesson introduces the BLS, so the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. This lesson includes some self-reflection. I like that. So this specific standard is related to entrepreneurship, career choices, and those types of things. And so the Take Charge lesson has them thinking about, like, what do I like to do? And what are some of the interests that I have? And so it actually gets the students thinking about what are they interested in, what are they good at, and then it connects them to, is it entrepreneurship? Is it being their own boss? Is it a particular career involving maybe problem solving or being creative or managing people? So that's just, that particular lesson is pretty great. In the couple ideas that we've integrated with that is, specifically with entrepreneurship, is we've connected teachers with guest speakers. So a couple examples in Southwest Iowa and Council Bluffs specific is we've connected a coffee shop, and there's a go-kart place here in Council Bluffs. And so we had 2 of those gentlemen. We hosted a summer entrepreneurship camp, and it was really interesting how pricing models and resolving conflict between staff came out naturally, and that really helped the students connect. They're like, maybe that's a career I want to go into because I want to help kind of solve problems. The picture in the middle left is the Money Habitudes. It's a deck of cards. This is a tool that if the students are like, well, I don't really know what I want to do, or you ask, well, what are you interested in? I don't know. And sometimes you get that. The Money Habitudes is a great tool where the students have 3 different piles. One is, this is like me, this is not like me, and this is somewhat like me. And the students put down the cards, and some of them are related, like spontaneity and security and being creative, those types of things. And so these cards, you can lay the cards down, and the students actually discover who they are answering questions. And so as they get those questions, then you can connect them to some of the interests and some of the ways that they might be thinking about career-wise. If they're spontaneous, they probably don't want to be in a cubicle, those types of things. The next resource is the Next Gen Personal Finance. I have 2 lessons connected to this. So just if you click on the image, the first image is just the Next Gen logo. Doesn't really cover career choices, entrepreneurship per se, but what I really liked about this lesson is that it covers helping students do cover letters and interviewing and some of those soft skills, networking and social media, and kind of dives into, well, if you want a career and you're posting stuff on social media that isn't going to help you get that job, that you might want to reconsider. The second lesson, so you see the little, the black words, lesson 2, that one is more connected to career choices and entrepreneurship. The focus there on that lesson 2 is specific to entrepreneurship, how to create a business, how to get a business startup going, and how do you do the pitch. A little bit Shark Tank-ish, but really, really good resource. The far right, Your Life, Your Money, Donald Faison, if you remember him, old school actor. I don't know if he's in anything current, but he walks through 4 or 5 different people's lives from high school to college, and some of them from high school to college to entrepreneur, from high school to wrestling through college and getting in debt. And so it's totally free. You can go online and watch it with your students. Excuse me. And it really does help them connect the dots between life after high school to career decisions related to education, to career decisions related to if I don't have education. So it's just a great tool, great resource, and the students can have some good small group dialogue of what did you get out of this, and so some self-directed discovery there. So the bottom left, my classroom economy. If you're looking for a classroom management system, we lost our file share here. There we go. All right, so on the bottom left, the My Classroom Economy is a classroom management system. It's not a curriculum per se, but it connects students to the different roles they can play in a classroom. And so you might want to integrate, well, we're going to have 25 different careers in this room, and those students are going to have to work together. And so you go ahead and click, once you get to this PowerPoint, you can click on the link and kind of get an idea there, but it'll help them connect your classroom, and they can do some research on different careers related to that, or they realize, man, I don't ever want to do this or be this. The America's Small Business Development Center, if you have not connected with a local one, they are phenomenal. They help small businesses, they help entrepreneurs, they do workshops all across America. If you have not connected to them, they are just a gold mine of resources related to just you getting a classroom speaker to, hey, I'm trying to figure out what are some of the trends in business startups, or what are some of the trends career-wise. Great resource. The last one on this slide is the High School Financial Planning Program. I really like their unit on lifestyles. So all of these different curriculum have their strengths and weaknesses. This particular curriculum, it focuses on personal values in the workplace, which I think is totally missed. A lot of times students are thinking, I want to just make a lot of money, or I want to work for the hospital, or I want to work for a bank, or I want to work for a school, whatever. But they totally forget that values drive the culture in an organization. And so it really helps the students kind of decide, what are the values that I have? Do I want to work for this company that has values that are significantly different than mine? And I would even argue that they're going to be unhappy there. I really did like this, the high school this particular lesson really just connects the personhood to the work, the career work. And lastly, there's a Jumpstart reality check connected to this lesson. The students they go to a website, they make a bunch of choices, and based on the choices that they make and the city that they choose and the career that they choose, it tells them how much money they need to make and how much per hour. So I thought that was really applicable, connecting the values to the work environment, to the work that they're actually doing, to can they afford to work in that particular city or that region. All right, slide 3 related to content. So evaluate the effect of taxes and other factors on income. I'll just be honest, this topic for high school students, as you probably know, super difficult, but there are tools for you. So real quickly, the Next Gen Personal Finance at the very top, there are teens and taxes, pay stubs and taxes, and how to file. There are great lessons related to those. I like the activity that's late. So if you're listening to this recording live, or if you're going to re-listen to it later, I'll repeat it twice. So look for the activity. It's W2, W4, refunds, oh my. W2, W4, refunds, oh my. It's just a great cookies on the bottom shelf lesson that helps students connect the dots between what the heck is a W2, what in the world is a W4, and when do I get a refund? Which a lot of people get the W2 and W4 mixed up. So it's just a great lesson that way. The high school financial planning lesson goes into gross and net pay. Not as, I would say it's good, great content, but not real exciting content-wise from like an interactive standpoint. I would say sidekick to high school financial planning is the cashcourse.org. So if you haven't checked that out, there's free online education. Cashcourse.org. It's a supplement to the high school financial planning curriculum. The Take Charge curriculum, this one introduces taxes similarly to a lot of different curriculums. The one lesson that I want to highlight is if you click on the math word next to it, it connects the spending lesson in Take Charge to the taxes, so that students actually get to calculate taxes, and they can kind of geek on that or go crazy with that. I found it's one of the easier lessons to teach because it integrates a paycheck with calculating Social Security, calculating those types of things. The bottom left tax bracket 2018 is actually a TurboTax link that connects students to the different tax brackets. So what I've done engagement-wise is just say, we're going to do a little bit of math today. We're going to connect some of the math standards to financial literacy related to taxes. So we're going to pretend that you make $50,000. I want you to tell me in each tax bracket how much tax you pay. You can have them work in groups. You can do some competition, all kinds of fun stuff there. But the goal is to get them into the tax bracket so they actually begin to understand how taxes actually work. It's a good exercise. It's kind of like around the world in elementary, getting them to do math together. The middle words, income minus deductions, is just a good big picture for you as an educator. I really like to have the students, I give them scenarios. So I'll say, hey, I'm married, filing jointly, I have 2 kids. What are some of my deductions? Go. And they go search for all the deductions that are applicable to me. Maybe I have student loans. And so helping them understand that deductions actually help them reduce their income tax. So it's just a fun activity. Have them look for credits the same way. All right, here's my scenario. I am married, but I don't have any kids. What are some of my credits? Well, do I have a house? Those types of things. So could it be is it a deduction? Is it a credit? Actually cutting them loose to search the web on what deductions and credits. Actually, they really like doing that. If you make it a little bit competitive, I've had great success with that. Lastly, on this page, the IRS. If you have not been to the IRS, I believe it's the link is in there. So once you get the PowerPoint, phenomenal portal for teachers and students. There's a teacher portal, a student portal. There's simulations, there are activities for the students. Far and above, one of the best resources related to taxes that I've found. So check that out. All right, so Real quickly, the Take Charge curriculum has a great, so we're looking at savings and spending plans. No rocket science here, it's AKA a budget. So Take Charge has a great budget tool. They also have good scenarios like family situations where the students are actually a financial planner. They have to decide, should we save this? Should we spend this? Should we get rid of the plane that we have? Those types of things. The high school financial planning program, I really like the student spending plans. So the teacher lesson is good, but their student worksheets are pretty good. Again, I put in the money habitudes on the far middle left. That's just another great way to get the students thinking about just another reinforcement activity of, am I a spender? Am I a saver? Some of the nuances of that. How do you integrate, maybe I'm a spender. How do you integrate that into a savings plan, into a budget? Maybe you need to allocate some miscellaneous funds and just be honest with yourself. The Next Gen Personal Finance, they have some lessons related to how do I budget? What is the cost of living? How much should I budget for food? How much should I budget for rent? So they actually drill down into all the different nuances of a budget. Really good. They also have some budgeting apps for the students to check out, maybe have them do it in class. The H&R Budget Challenge, that is an online simulation. The students actually get a paycheck and they have different life scenarios that they have to figure out. Well, what if my paycheck comes on the 10th and I have some expenses due on the 5th? What do I do? Which one should I pay late? So it actually has some of those scenarios in it. The bottom left, Spartan Dollars and Cents, that is a paper pencil simulation. I like it. I teach the community classes. I use this in my community classes. I use this with ACT prep students. I also use it with high school seniors. I give them a career. They have a salary, and then they are given a budget card, and they make all these choices, and they realize, oh man, I guess I didn't have as much money as I thought. So that's hyperlinked, great resource, super fun, and it takes about 45 minutes or so. The far right, the exercise, and so I just put that as a picture. So exercise and spending. I would just encourage you to have your students track what they spend. They will be very surprised at what they spend. So if they have not done that, and then maybe the students don't have a ton of income, maybe have them track what their family spends on food, or maybe have their family spends on activities, and have that add up for them. So just getting them in the habit of tracking is the important factor in that standard. Our last slide in relation to part one today. So apply consumer skills to saving and spending decisions. So the goal with this standard is that the students are actually considering what are the options out there. So this particular standard isn't so much that the students are making the decision of saving and spending, but they're actually applying some of the pros and cons, cost benefit, a little bit economics, if you will, to being a consumer. So the Next Gen Personal Finance, there is a great calculator lesson, not calculator, but there's a great lesson that helps students calculate price per ounce and those types of things. So a great example of this is I was at my kitchen table trying to figure out, should I buy solar salt from this place or this place? And I was actually calculating the cost per pound. So this particular lesson with Next Gen has the students do it cost per ounce, whether you're getting spaghetti sauce or whether you're getting solar salt like me, trying to do some consumer, trying to figure out, should I spend this way? With the Take Charge lesson in the middle right, this one, the students actually do some product research. So this is more like, should I buy a Sony TV or a Samsung TV? What are the consumer reports? Should I get a moped? What moped is the best? Should I buy name brand moped? Should I get an aftermarket? Those types of things. So it's a great way for the students to decide, do I want to buy store brand or do I want to buy name brand? Maybe it's on taste, and have them kind of work that out. So the high school financial planning program, they have a great lesson on decisions. So integrating product research and cost. So the students are actually asked to should they buy a car that's reliable? Meaning, can they buy something that's used and decent? Or do I have to buy something, do I have to spend a little bit more money if I want something long-term? So you have the students actually deciphering, should I buy a Ford? Should I buy a Chevy? Should I buy a Honda? Should I buy a Hyundai? Which is an equal value. So the goal with that lesson is value. The bottom left, the ultimate showdown, I really liked. I've done this a couple different ways. I have students, I write down a bunch of banks, credit unions in the area, and then I have them go against, I break them into groups. Hey, you two go research this bank. You two go research this credit union or whatever. And I have different categories. So CD rates, savings rates, checking rates, rewards. There's rewards for being a part of this institution. What are the fees? And actually having them be a good consumer, and then I have them present. So after a couple class periods, they've gathered all their intel, and they actually are a salesman or woman. They actually present their findings and say, you should bank at so-and-so because of their CD rates, or because they have great checking interest on checking. So that was a great discussion for quite a few students. The bottom right is just an idea, to just throwing it out there, is having students actually do the cost benefit. Should I buy a car? Should I lease a car? Should I buy a house? Should I rent an apartment? What are the pros and cons to that? There's a great lesson Take Charge has that helps students that way also. So that kind of wraps up a lot of our resources. Many of our resources are similar, but there's so many different lessons that are out there, so many different ways to teach. So I just wanted to put this on there. The Bridges Out of Poverty on the bottom left. If you have students that are kind of in a poverty mindset, they aren't really thinking about the future, great book to buy to help engage them, just thinking patterns wise. And if you haven't checked it out, the one in the green book, the Winning the Money Game, it's an excellent way to introduce financial concepts via reading. Adam Carroll's a good friend of mine. I get no royalties for this promotion, but it's a book that we definitely use and encourage. And at this time, we're going to open our attendee chat open. If you have questions, go ahead and throw them in the attendee chat as you're thinking about questions, or maybe you have a lesson that you maybe are challenged, or a topic you're challenged with. As you're thinking about those lessons, notice those questions, top left, attendee chat, go ahead and throw that in there. I'll try to address it right now. I'll wait just a few minutes for any questions. I do want to mention before I forget that at the end of this, there will be a survey that pops up. If you let us know if it met your expectations, if you're looking for something a little bit different, if you're needing more follow-up, when you fill out that survey, your name is going to go in the hat for a $20 gift card, and those will be mailed out in about a week. So if you have any questions, you can email via email. So I'm going to move right along. So thank you for attending today. And this webinar has been put together in collaboration with Vicki Vermeer from the Dordt College Center for Economic Education, and then myself representing the Iowa Council and TS Institute. We're happy that you're here, and I hope that these resources were helpful for you. Take care and have a great Tuesday night.